Business Latest is brought to you by Capco in just about everything.
All right, welcome back in our continuing coverage of the unrest in Libya. Let's just give you now a recap of the latest developments there. Turkey has sent two Sea Cat rescue ships to evacuate its citizens from Libya. So far, one has been refused entry at Tripoli and the other one is heading towards Benghazi. The United Nations rights chief has raised the possibility of crimes against humanity in Libya. The Egyptian army, meanwhile, has beefed up its military presence on the border with Libya. The Arab League is also expected to hold an emergency meeting on Tuesday to discuss the situation in that country. And the Libyan ambassador to the United States has now also resigned and is calling on Muammar Gaddafi to go and leave our people alone. That's the quote. Now, meanwhile, Al Jazeera has more information now on the bombardment of the capital by military jets on Monday night. Our sources tell us that the bombing was focused on army ammunition depots near Tripoli. Jets also targeted command centers, it seems, to stop any troops joining the protesters or perhaps to stop protesters getting hold of weapons. And witnesses say helicopter gunships were used to fire on the streets in order to scare demonstrators away. Well, Libya is one of the world's biggest oil producers and has the largest proven oil reserves in Africa. But with the continuing unrest, analysts say that reserves are not what counts in the short run, but daily output production. Libya has the largest oil reserves in Africa, as we said, and also the second largest in the world. That produces $154 million in revenue a day. This is 2/3 of the country's population earn less than $2 a day. Well, Caroline Bain, who is an oil and commodities specialist from the Economics Intelligence Unit, says that the ongoing situation in Libya would have a negative impact on the country in the short term.
Libya produces about 2% of the world's global supply of oil, but it is the world's 12th largest exporter, so it is important to the world oil market. But I think it needs to be put into context. At the moment, OPEC is restraining output. They've got production ceilings. Reportedly, there is spare capacity of about 6 to 8 million barrels a day in OPEC member states alone. So if Libyan oil was to be disrupted in a serious way, it might take a week or so, or perhaps a month or so. But there is available capacity for oil production to cover the loss from Libya. So I think that this is perhaps a bit of an exaggeration. In the short term, it's definitely a big risk. The impact on Libya, I think, is far greater. I think about 98% of government revenue comes from oil and gas, well over 80% of exports, again, from hydrocarbons. So my feeling is that neither side within Libya itself will be particularly interested in disrupting the supply of oil and gas.
And there is also, of course, the issue of arms. At least one weapons expert estimates the potential cost to Russia of uprisings in Africa and the Middle East at some $10 billion. Just last month, the Russian Federation agreed to sell $1.8 billion worth of arms to Libya alone. Neve Barker has more on that from Moscow.
Like many Western countries, Russia has been keen to establish a foothold in Libya ever since the country opened up to foreign investment. Moscow has been constructing a $3.5 billion high-speed rail link in the country, due to be completed sometime next year. And only last week, Russia signed a joint agreement between the nation's energy giant Gazprom and the Italian energy firm Eni to develop the Elephant oil field in the south of Libya. But as news of the violence in the country reaches Russia, Moscow has asked for all of its foreign specialists to leave the country and urged Gaddafi to end the bloodshed. Still, at the end of last month, when protesters in Egypt were gaining momentum, the Libyan defense minister traveled here to Moscow to sign a major arms deal worth $1.8 billion. According to a diplomatic military source, the deal included the sale of heavy weaponry, tanks and fighter jets. Before sanctions were imposed on Libya, the country used to be the biggest buyer of Russian armaments in the second half of the 20th century, something the Kremlin hoped Gaddafi would be once again. But now Gaddafi is using Russian-made weapons to kill his own people. As for the country's relationship with Gaddafi, well, at least one Russian nationalist politician, Vladimir Zhirinovsky, has told Gaddafi that he's free to come and settle here in Russia. The Kremlin, though, have remained quiet, undoubtedly watching developments in Libya very closely.
All right, let's go over now to Nazanin Sadri and get an update from our web desk on the situation in Libya. Nazanin.
Thanks, Folly. Well, at the moment, lots of messages are coming on Twitter talking about the eastern border of Libya being opened up for media organizations to cross over. Here are some of the other messages also coming up. Ali, a blogger we believe who's in Libya, tweets, "I called my brother on the street right now. Streets are calm, marks of fights, marks on walls, unarmed citizens guarding banks, more to come." And support from the United States, blogger Loga tweets, "When Gaddafi is forced from power, the people will not treat him well." And another anonymous blogger writes, "We have reached the point of no return. We know if we don't die in the streets, they'll kill us in our houses." Well, in order to keep those messages from inside the country coming out, Google has launched a service where anyone who has access to a phone that's working can call a landline and leave a message. That will then be transcribed directly into a tweet. The numbers are on your screens right now. We're also getting reports of limited internet access available in Libya. You can find the details of the internet proxy service on the rolling ticker news at the bottom of the screen. Many people are passing on those to friends and family in Libya. Let me show you now some of the videos that we're getting in. They've been posted on a website called Feb 17th that's aggregating these images. We must, of course, say that it's difficult to verify any of these independently. These are pictures from the town of Al-Khoms on the Mediterranean coast of Libya. People there are chanting in solidarity with those in Benghazi. They're also saying this is the end of Gaddafi and broadcast this, AlJazeera. And this video is said to show people gathering in Green Square in Tripoli on Sunday night. The blogger says it was filmed after Saif Gaddafi spoke on state television. That was the night that we reported lots of gun battles and clashes. And take a look at this cartoon picture just posted on TwitPic, showing that Libya's ruler with a bunch of skulls hidden under his cloak. Well, that's it for me for now on the web desk. Back to you, Folly.
Thank you very much, Nazanin. Of course, we'll keep monitoring those tweets and we'll have more for you throughout the day here on Al Jazeera. Let's now turn to other news. And hundreds of students in Yemen are continuing to demand the resignation of President Ali Abdullah Saleh. Riot police in the capital, Sana'a, kept watch of the crowd who chanted slogans such as Youth Revolution. Scuffles broke later against supporters of the regime. At least 11 people have been killed since anti-government protests erupted earlier this month. A leading Bahraini opposition figure is on his way home. Hassan Mushaima of the Haq movement is due back in Manama late Tuesday. His return will test the promise by the ruling monarch